Hi, I'm Sarah Larby,
Hi, Maisha Kavani.
and this is 5-Minute Investor, where you get to ask your investing questions. Today's question is,
Today's question is from Jenna, and Jenna wants to know, what is the biggest mistake that you think real estate investors make?
that could take us into so many avenues because we make lots of mistakes and we always continue to make mistakes. I think the biggest one for me, and I'll tell you, there's lots of mistakes and there's lots of different strategies, but I think when it comes to the BRRRR strategy, I think it is just over-renovating and not understanding that you are doing this for tenants and you're doing this as an investment. So I find that when people are renovating as an investor and sometimes they're new, they almost like go overboard because they want everything to feel like it's going to be their home, and then they spend the budget through the roof. And ultimately, rather than working it backwards, so like take your after repair value, and essentially what the renovation should be and your profits, and that should be your purchase price. But I find most people will just blow the budget on the renovation. So and your after repair value, the end result, and the rent, doesn't necessarily get that much better if you're spending 50% more on the renovations than what you needed to do. So I'll always look at, where you are, the market, renovations for, an upscale type of neighborhood that you're going to maybe do some short-term rentals in is going to be completely different than maybe a B area where you're going to have more long-term blue collar types of tenants. So renovate for the area. Don't over renovate. Understand what the numbers are, the maximum after repair value, the maximum rents, and stay to that. And it might be just basics, right? Just basics. Or it might be if you're renovating to flip, it's a different thing than if you're renovating to rent. So I would say that would be the biggest one in the BRRRR strategy, but there's lots of mistakes out there.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that you're right. There's a lot of mistakes we make as investors. And I think another one that I've noticed, especially starting to look in sort of the recreational areas. So for example, more recently, I'm trying to expand my recreational portfolio, trying to get more cottages. And I think one thing where, it's important to look at is the possibility of appreciation and forcing that appreciation and realizing that I could get a $1.5 million cottage that is beautiful and turnkey and ready to move in, but as an investor, what's that going to give me, right? So I know you always tell me the uglier the better, right?
Yes.
Make sure you find the cottage that is just ugly enough that you can make it beautiful, get that appreciation earlier, and then leverage on that. And I think sometimes we forget about that quality of a good investor and keeping that strategy in mind when investing.
I mean, look, we could add so many more. I would like to add a couple more. Well, at least one more.
Yeah.
I think right now in this market, there's a lot of speculators, and there's a lot of speculators that are going to be in some trouble if things shift, if there's a market cycle, a market downturn, rate increases. And there's going to be a lot of people that are not cash flowing. They're buying on just appreciation. And I think that is potentially a very dangerous, potentially a bigger mistake than the first one I mentioned. But look, there's lots of mistakes out there. Be strategic, invest with multiple exit strategies. Don't just bank on appreciation, because that is the icing on the cake.
That's right.
Look at cash flow, even if it's minimal. Look at cash flow, look at mortgage pay down. And if the markets take a little bit of a tumble, at least you can withstand those, uncertain times.
And I know another big one that I learned from you is analysis paralysis. If you're looking to be an investor and you're looking to grow your portfolio, don't get caught up in, how the market's looking and what the interest rates are and what it's going to be in the future. Learn the methods to do the proper calculations, learn the numbers you need to know, and learn the analysis process by using the calculators. And don't be afraid to make that step, because guess what? If you overanalyzed, you wouldn't be where you are today. If I overanalyzed, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I think there's something to be said about, you're very much the person is just do it, right? Take the necessary steps to make the right calculations, to make those decisions, take those questions and ask yourself those questions, but don't be afraid to make that jump.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I'm going to add another one as a bonus. I think it's also not screening tenants and just giving the keys to the first person that breathes and can fog a mirror and has first and last.
Yes.
Because here's the thing, you may not be living in a municipality that is very pro-tenant, but many of us are. And if you give the keys to the wrong tenant, you could be 7 months, 10 months, potentially with no payment of rent, and you're going through the process, you're going through the board, the courts, and all of that stuff. And it might take you 10 months to be able to get the eviction.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're in a state where it's very pro landlord and you could do this faster, it's a different story. But if you are living somewhere where the rules are not necessarily in your favor, take your time. This is where we have a little bit of control.
Yes.
And don't give the keys to the first person. Do your checks. And if you're not too sure what to do, hire a company that is well-versed in tenant screening.
That's right. Because that can literally make or break your investment. You could be tied up in years of litigation and losses of money if you don't bring the right people into your property, as well as they could damage the property. And then that'll cost you even more money and headache. And I know we've all been there to some degree. So I think that's a very good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I add a bonus?
Absolutely.
Let's just add a bonus.
It's our show. You can add whatever you want, Sarah.
Here's the thing is we've all learned, unfortunately, the hard way. And hopefully you can learn from us and, not make the same mistakes. But hiring the wrong contractor by just finding somebody on Kijiji, not the best strategy, right? So like even just like hiring your team members, if you don't get references and referrals and have the right questions, you hear horror stories about like contractors, getting a ton of money up front. And, unfortunately the investors, they might be new and they don't know. So they pay a ton up front and then all of a sudden they go MIA or they do a shoddy job and you got to fire them. I've had to fire my fair share. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, so you do your due diligence on your team members. I mean, look, we can keep going and going. Ask us another question about it and we will give you more information. If you liked today's show, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment below.